Alright, we're gonna need some oranges. These will do. We're gonna need some True Source honey. Yep, 5 pounds ought to do it. And some cinnamon sticks. And some whole cloves. A tub of ground allspice. And we'll get some raisins. And we're going to need a jug of water, 1 gallon for sure. And then we're going to need some baker's yeast. And then some 12-inch balloons. I like silver. Howdy YouTube, thanks for stopping in at Dad's Toolbox. Today we're going to be making an adult beverage called mead. We're using a popular recipe called Joe's Ancient Orange Mead that I got off of the Got Mead website. I'll go ahead and throw up a link there. And as you can see here, the ingredients, like I said, are all pretty basic. You don't need any special equipment or anything to do this. So let me show you what we got here. Okay, so first we're going to start with the water. You want to buy bottled water for 2 reasons. First off, so you can get nice, clean, unfluorinated water, and so you can get this handy jug. We're actually going to brew our mead in this jug right here. If you're on well water, you know, it's good and clean water, I guess, if you've had it tested. But if you've got like heavy minerals and stuff like that, it might change the flavor. So consider that. Recipe calls for cinnamon sticks. Now I bought the big jug for $8-9, so that because I plan on using a lot of cinnamon sticks down the road, and it's cheaper to buy them in large quantities. But if you look in there, there's easily 50 in there at a minimum. So the price per cinnamon stick is actually pretty low. And then cloves. These, let me open that just so you can get an idea of what we're looking at here. Let's see what those are. You can see there's easily over 100 in there. And you only need 1, sometimes 2. For the recipe. Now the recipe also calls out for either ground nutmeg or ground allspice, just a pinch of this. I went ahead and I've used the nutmeg in the past because I didn't have the allspice, but since I was shopping, I went ahead and bought the allspice because I want to see how that works out. I'm gonna go ahead and put the nutmeg away, and then you're gonna need some raisins. The recipe calls for a handful, right around 25 or so. We're gonna have plenty just in this one little box. And then the Fleshman's bread yeast. It comes in jars. It also comes in these little packets. I think these packets are a little bit more handy. Plus the jars I think are for bread makers. I don't know if there's a difference or not. Either way, you can use this stuff. It'll work just fine. You're going to need a big pot. Now, what I've got in this pot right now is the water out of this jug. I've put it in there and I've heated it up, not to a boil, but to where we've just got little bubbles starting. That tells me the water is going to be hot enough to help dissolve the honey. And that's the only reason we're heating it at this point. And then I've got 2 items I can use to transfer the water from this pot into this jug via this funnel. And then of course we've got our honey. This is the honey I bought for this project. The big thing when you're looking for honey is you're looking for the True Source label. That tells you, to the best of our government's ability, that they can tell that that is actual honey and not just corn syrup. What I've got is I've got it in a pan full of hot tap water to loosen the honey up, to make it easier to pour. This is a 5-gallon jug I bought for $12.50, I think. And the recipe calls up for 3.5 pounds. Yeah, see, it's 5 pounds. The recipe calls up for 3.5. Now, I'm sure you notice I've got these other jugs over here, and that's there's method to the madness here. Now, I went ahead and I bought this in the intro. You can see it's 1 pound of honey. So you know, if you fill this jug up, you're gonna have 1 pound of honey. I already have one from, you know, days past. And then there's this honey. I bought this honey at Costco. It's roughly the same price as this other stuff. The reason I have this bottle out here is because you know, it's a 5 pound jug. Generally what I would do is I would go halfway from the top to the bottom and make a little line and call that halfway. That'd be 2.5 pounds. Well, because of the shape of this bottle, you can see that that's not really accurate. So if you end up with a bottle that's roughly the same shape from top to bottom, you know, it doesn't have to be perfect. You know, you can see there's a little handhole cut in there. This recipe is not so specific that, you know, if you're 1/10 of a pound off or whatever, that it's going to ruin your mead. You know, I've done it in the past where I just draw a little line here about halfway, and I pour the honey out until I get down to that line and call it good for 2.5 pounds. But on this guy, we're going to be pouring it into this 3.5 times, just to see how that works out. And you can see there, the warm water's done its job. So we're going to go ahead and get to pouring. Alright, so yeah, like I said, if you were to buy this, you know, you could just add it to your honey ration. It's really not going to matter if you mix the two honeys. Down the road, if you're still doing this, if you're still making honey or still making mead, you're going to have partial bottles everywhere. You're going to find yourself combining them to make batches. All right, that's pretty good honey there. Get this off of there. So all we're going to do is fill this up, just like this one's filled up. Let's let that air bubble go up. There you go. And you can see it's just filled up just to about there. So we'll go ahead and just pour it right in there. To expedite this, get a little bit of your hot water, put it in the jug, put the lid on, and shake it up. There. Now you got a clean jug again, so that's number one. Number two. That was number 3, and now I'm just going to go roughly halfway. Good enough. Pour that in there. Shake it up. Forgot to mention our oranges. Alright, so the day before you make your mead, you're going to pick out your fruit and you're going to wash it in the sink real good. You're trying to get rid of any pesticides, chemicals, or wild yeast that may be on the outside of that fruit. And then you're going to cut it up. I like to cut my oranges into quarters, and then I cut them, each of the quarters, into 3 separate slices, making 12 total. What this does is it expands the amount of surface area that you're going to have in contact with your solution that's going to draw flavor out of that orange. Also, it makes them smaller so that they fit into the neck of that bottle a lot easier. Once you've got it cut into 12ths, you're going to go ahead and pitch the whole orange into a plastic bag of some kind. Here I use Ziplocs. You can see I've got 2. That's because I plan on making 2 batches. You're going to take those bags, you're going to throw them in the freezer. You put them in the freezer because the fruit is full of liquid, and when that liquid freezes, it expands, and when it expands, it bursts the cells containing the liquid. And when you put it in your mead, what's going to happen is it's going to draw all that flavor out from those burst cells. Before I put the oranges in, so I'm going to go ahead and drop a whole cinnamon stick in there. We're going to drop, let's try 2 this time. I've only ever done 1. We'll try 2. So we're going to drop 1 and 2. Come on, there we go, 2. Raisins. Two, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 4, 5. All right. Now we're going to take our orange. The recipe calls for it to be cut up into 4ths. I cut mine into 12ths. I'm sorry, the recipe calls for it to be cut up into 8ths. I cut mine into 12ths. It gives you more surface area. And it fits into this bottle way easier. You see this? You just drop right in there. And there you go, that's a whole orange. Now, I'm going to add some more hot water. Handier when you can just pour it in there. That's not the case for us today. Okay, so now, oops. It's okay. Just water. Now notice we haven't filled it all the way up. See, it's filled up to about there. Now what we've got to do, put that lid on tight. We've got to shake this for several minutes. Oh, I forgot to put my allspice in there. Calls for just a pinch. Let's try it out. If I can get in there. Oh, it's got kind of a Christmassy smell to it. Instead of sticking my finger in there, I'm just gonna get, I don't know. There we go. That much, like a quarter teaspoon is what I'm gonna put in here. Just drop that in there. I'm gonna go ahead and close it up and shake it some more. And you can see there's no honey on the bottom. That's good. That means we've dissolved it all. It's all dissolved into the solution here. That's good. Clean that water up. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and put just a little bit more water in here. You don't want to fill it up all the way, because as it ferments, it'll foam and it'll actually expand a little bit, and you don't want it to come out of the bottle. Okay, we'll call that good. You see we got about 2 inches from the top there. Now what I'm going to do is I got to put the lid on it, and we're going to, it feels really warm right now. We're gonna put the lid on it, and we're gonna let this come down to room temperature before we go any further. I'll shake it some more. All right, guys, and now if you followed along thus far, this is what you should have. You can see this one's a real nice light color, just like our honey was. Got all our raisins and cloves, cinnamon sticks, oranges all floating around in there. And now that it's sat and it's room temperature, what we need to do is, let's get this prepared. The balloon, this is the part that gets most people scratching their heads. You can buy a fancy airlock off the internet for sure. They don't cost that much. But, you know, if you don't know, if you want to take it up as a hobby, there's no reason to spend the money when you can just use a balloon. Now, what I do is I take, you can take a safety pin or a sewing needle, something of that caliber, and what you do is you poke a hole all the way through the balloon up near the top, set it off to the side. And then we're going to take one of these packets of yeast. Shake it down, all the way down to the bottom, and then we're going to cut it open. The recipe calls for 1 teaspoon, but this packet is roughly 2. It's not going to make or break it. Okay, so what we're going to do, take your yeast and just pour it right in there. You don't have to worry about getting every grain out of there. We've already shown that we are using way more than we need. Put your lid back on here. Shake it up, get those yeast spread around in there. Okay. about all you need to do right there. Now, you're going to take the lid off. You're going to take this balloon. And you get your fingers in there and stretch it out. See how big that gets. You're just going to put it over the whole top of that bottle. Just like that. Now, as the yeast eats the sugar and expels carbon dioxide, pressure is going to build up inside this container and this balloon will swell. Now the reason we poked a hole through it is so that some air can escape. What we're trying to create is a positive pressure inside the bottle so that the air is always leaving. There's never a point where the air is not leaving so that other things can go in. If you don't poke a hole through the balloon, that's fine. The balloon can blow up. We bought 12-inch balloons. And the balloon can blow up about this big, and that's great. The problem happens is if that balloon pops, or if it comes off the top of that bottle, and you're at work, or you're at home in bed, and you don't realize it, and it's 2 or 3 days before you realize that the top has come off of there. There's all kinds of things that could have gotten in here. You know, fruit flies are one of the biggest nemesis to making mead. So keep that in mind. Just go ahead and poke a hole in it. You know, after, you know, a few weeks, and it starts to dwindle a little bit, if you feel better that way, you can take the balloon off that has the holes in it and just go ahead and put a solid balloon on there. But while it's in the middle of its heaviest fermentation, just leave the balloon with the holes. It'll bleed off air, it won't pop, it won't shoot off across the room. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. Now with everything that we've done, we've gotten to the part that is the hardest part of the whole process. And that's the part where we have to wait. We have to take this bottle, we're going to put it somewhere cool and dark and not fuss with it for 60 days. Don't shake it, don't stir it, don't agitate it in any way. If you have to, or if you want to change the balloon on the top, that would be okay, but you're going to do your best not to disturb the bottle. And then after 60 days has passed, come back to this channel and I will show you how mine turned out. And I'll show you how to get it out of this bottle into something that you can drink out of while leaving all this other junk in there. If you think this video was helpful or entertaining in any way, well, go ahead, hit that thumbs up button. Let me know I'm doing all right. And if you're curious, if you want to see how to do more of this stuff, just hit that subscribe button so you'll know when I got new stuff out. Thanks for stopping in.